The counter-terrorism bill would extend the maximum period a suspect can be held without charge from 28 to 42 days. The government says it is vital. Those opposed to it and other measures fear it could endanger civil liberties. It is a debate that is drawing much attention. Both sides began discussing the proposals in earnest in the Commons yesterday. The national newspapers today spotlighting the political differences and concerns. So it was a packed house today when discussion and debate resumed.
Mr. Speaker, I would have thought there would be agreement across the whole House that the first duty of a government is to protect the national security of our country. And I would be failing in my duty if I did not report to the House the advice of the police and security services. But I was going to go on to say I do not rely on that entirely. We have seen in the recent instances of cases that have come before us the amount, sophistication and complexity of evidence that has got to be assessed. And I refer the House to the airport case in 2006, when there were 400 computers, 8,000 CDs, 25,000 exhibits, and that's why some of the people who were detained for 27 days. And I have no doubt that the sophistication and complexity of the cases will require us to do more in future years. And that is not only the advice of the police, that is the judgment I make having to look at terrorist cases every week.
He was convinced that this was the right way forward.
Mr. Speaker, we have made a judgment after looking at all the evidence, including the evidence from the police and security services, that this is the right thing to do. I would not want to have to come to the House in a moment of an emergency and ask for extraordinary powers when we could, in a period of calmness, build in a process that will not give oxygen of publicity to terrorists when we have to take action. He said, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to national security, I will always listen to the police and security services and take their advice with the utmost seriousness. Now, Ken Jones, the head of ACPO, has made it very clear what the police think about this. Hugh Ord, the Chief Constable of Northern Ireland, has made his position clear. Lord Stevens, the man that he listens to, he says, on police matters, says there really will be exceptional cases where the police service will need to go beyond 28 days, and he said that in the Times today. And I have to say to him that taking into account the advice of the police and security services, but also looking at the weight, complexity and sophistication of evidence that has got to be examined, it seems to me that in a moment of calm we should put in place this legislation, and I do not want, in a moment of panic, for people to have to come to the House and bring in emergency legislation.
Mr Brown said human rights will be well protected.
Protections built in for civil liberties in this bill are greater than any time when we've dealt with terrorist legislation. The Director of Public Prosecution has to approve the order. It has to become before Parliament with an independent legal opinion. The Chairman of the Human Rights Committee has got to be informed, and the Chairman of the Home Affairs Select Committee. An independent reviewer has got to look at all circumstances of the case. Parliament has got to vote on the issue, and a judge has got to look at the case every 7 days. Now, he knows perfectly well that the civil liberties protections that are put in this legislation are greater than ever before. And I do not like opposition for opposition's sake. We should be, Mr. Speaker, we should be facing up to an issue of national security. I would like to have achieved a consensus above party politics. Because it has been impossible to do so, the government must make a judgment, and the judgment is not that it's popular, is that it is right and necessary for the security of our country.
Security fears, said the Home Secretary Jackie Smith, were very real.
That threat is real and it is serious. Firstly, the threat is unprecedented in scale. 65 terrorists have been convicted in our courts since the start of 2007. There are more than 200 groupings and 200 individuals of concern to agencies in the UK today. Secondly, the threat is more ruthless than any we have faced before. It aims for mass casualties, uses suicide methods and would use dirty bombs given half a chance.
The voting on the various aspects of the counter-terrorism bill is expected later tonight, but the spotlight will once again return to Westminster.